Welcome to my garden. Let's go see what's growing. Just at the entrance of the garden is my lemon balm, which is good for anxiety, insomnia, and clarity. It also makes a delicious tea. Next to the lemon balm is peppermint. I used to have 2 tubs of peppermint in the garden, but the drought last year killed one and hurt this one. I need to transplant some of this into another tub because I love peppermint tea. The farmer made me these 2 stands, and I have leaf lettuce growing in this one. I need to get the second one planted so we can have salad all summer. This is a salsa garden, and I planted a couple of weeks ago. You don't have to have a large area to grow the ingredients for salsa. I have 1 tomato plant, 2 jalapenos, some onions and cilantro, and a 2x4 foot space. This is not a green stalk planter. I'm not sure green stalk is something I need, but I am intrigued by the idea, so I picked up these stackable planters at Dollar Tree for less than $15. I planted hyssop, oregano, and fenugreek in it so far, and if I like it, I may get a green stalk next year. Across from the lettuce, my melons are growing on a cattle panel trellis. I have Delice de la Table, I don't think I say that right, Tigger, and Kajari melons. These 3 varieties will be small, personal-sized melons, about 1 to 2 pounds per melon, so the farmer and I can either split one or eat one whole without having any leftovers. At the end of the melon row is a sunflower. I have sunflowers planted all over the garden. The farmer and I were born and raised in Kansas, and the sunflower is the state flower of Kansas. Even though we've lived in Missouri for over 30 years, I still love sunflowers. This is chocolate mint, which is new to me this year, but I'm excited to add it to my herb collection. I plan to dehydrate the leaves to make a chocolate mint tea. Yum! Next to the chocolate mint is 1 of 3 tubs of chamomile I have growing in my garden. Chamomile has so many medicinal uses, and I love the taste, so I grow a lot of it. This next tub is empty right now, but I will probably transplant some of the peppermint from the other tub here, so I will have plenty in the future. Here is a second tub of chamomile, and the drought killed my oregano last year, so I'm starting this new tub. And I have some planted in the herb tower. I have had all kinds of trouble growing echinacea in the past, but this year 1 out of the 3 plants I put in last year have come back, and it looks healthy. Maybe I can keep this perennial plant growing. There's my sage. I love sage. I love it more than my family does, so I have to control myself at Thanksgiving and not put too much into the dressing. I'm growing spearmint for the first time this year. It's already spread since I put it in a few weeks ago. That's what mints do. They want to see what's over there, so they wander over for a look. That's why you should grow them in a tub. This is Calendula. It will have a beautiful orange flower and is great for so many skin problems such as scrapes and rashes. I have calendula planted in various parts of the garden. I transplanted this plantain a couple of days ago from the yard into this tub. It looks pretty sad right now because it really liked where it was growing, but unfortunately it was growing in front of the door to the chicken coop and the chickens were walking all over it. Plantain is great for insect stings, and if you get a spit poultice put on a bee or wasp sting, it will stop the pain and swelling almost immediately. But who wants to make a spit poultice out of plantain that has been trampled by chickens? Not me. So I moved some to this tub inside the fenced garden to keep it clean in case I need a spit poultice. In this bed I have 1 lonely cinnamon basil. The only thing I like cinnamon basil for is to make iced tea, so 1 is plenty. These are Black Beauty zucchini. I also have a row of zinnias coming up to help protect my zucchini from squash bugs. Around the front of this bed I have jalapeno peppers. We love salsa, and I hope to make a lot this summer. This little guy is celery. I've planted celery in various spots around the garden, so you will see more. This is the first time I've grown celery because it used to be so cheap I didn't want to give it space in my garden. It's no longer cheap. Nothing is, so I'm growing my own. Here's our strawberry bed. It's getting very full, so any runners that it puts off will be used to start another bed. We really like strawberries. Here's another container of calendula, and on this old scaffold that I'm using as a trellis are 3 buttercup squash. And these 3 plants are baby bear pumpkins, which will produce a small pumpkin. These are my sweet peppers: Banana, Purple Beauty, Chocolate Beauty, and California Wonder. I've also planted some habanadas, which are supposed to taste like habaneros, but without the heat. Like I said, we like salsa. We just don't want the salsa to make our heads explode. A little heat is good, but I want to be able to taste my food. Behind the sweet peppers, against the arch trellis, are blue lake green beans. These are pole beans, and I've planted them on each side of the arch. Eventually, they will climb up the trellis and meet in the middle. There's another sunflower, and next to that is a Boston pickling cucumber that has a mate on the other side of the arch. And there's another sunflower. This is a national pickling cucumber with a mate on the other side. By the end of the summer, this arch will be covered with cucumbers and beans, creating a tunnel in the middle of the garden. Inside of the arch trellis, I have onions and carrots planted. There's also some lettuce that needs to be harvested and some purple cabbages and green cabbages. Look at that head of cabbage. I'm going to have to come out and harvest that later today. Here's more calendula, and next to it is an interesting coleus that my church gave to the mothers for Mother's Day this year. And next to it is an old tea kettle. I like old tea kettles and have a few of them around the garden. I planted ginger for the first time this year, and they aren't up yet, but I'm hopeful. They are not hardy in Zone 6B, so I planted them in pots and plan to bring them inside for the winter. Look at that massive lettuce. I've harvested off of it many times, but you can't tell it. It makes a delicious salad. And here's another sunflower. And another celery. Another sunflower. And here's another large lettuce that we've been eating from. This is a ground cherry. If you've never had ground cherries, you are missing out. They have small fruits about the size of a marble and taste a bit like pineapple. Because they are related to tomatillos, they come in their own little wrapper. They are not ready to eat until they fall to the ground, thus the name ground cherry. I like to make ground cherry jam. Another sunflower, and another ground cherry, and another tea kettle. In the back of the garden, in an old water trough, are Jerusalem artichokes, also known as sunchokes. These are a perennial plant. When you want to eat some, you dig up the tubers, which when cooked taste a bit like potato. We like them roasted. As long as you leave some of the tubers in the ground, they will come back year after year. In fact, they can be very invasive if not contained, which is why they are in this trough. We have sweet potatoes and garlic planted here. The garlic will probably be ready to harvest in about a month, just in time for the sweet potatoes to spread out. Last year, the garlic didn't do well because of the drought, so I didn't have much to save back and plant this year. I don't care how much you water your garden, it's not the same as rain. I was watering for 2 hours every evening, but it was still a bad year for the garden. Here are some more cabbages. Aren't they beautiful? This is another celery, and this is a volunteer garlic. I have no idea how it got up in this raised bed. A healthy kale and a pitiful kale. They were planted at the same time in the same bed and in the same way, so I have no idea what's going on. Here are a few more onions, another celery, radishes that are ready to be done. The weather got hot and so did the radishes. Too hot for me to eat, so it's time to pull them. I may try pickling them. Here's another one of my favorite herbs, yarrow. This plant is incredible to stop a wound from bleeding. Just sprinkle a little dried yarrow on the wound. It also helps the wound heal quicker. As often as the farmer injures himself, this is a valuable herb to have around. Here's my thyme. It looks like it's time to harvest the thyme. And tucked into this corner are some chives. Down here are some plants we need to get into the ground. We have 4 blueberry plants and a fig tree. We know where they're going to go, but haven't gotten around to it yet. Do you ever get so busy you can't get everything done? On the other side of the greenhouse, this entire bed is beets. I love pickled beets, and I use my sweet cousin Robin's recipe. It's the best. Last year, I only planted 2/3 of this bed, and I'm on my last jar of beets. This year, I'm growing enough to last more than a year. We have a lot of raised beds, and I love them, but potatoes we plant into the ground. This is 4 rows, 50 feet long. There's 1 row of Kennebec, 1 of Yukon Gold, and 2 rows of Pontiac Red. I also planted some potatoes we had purchased from the store that had started to chit before we used them. I have more herbs in these tubs. This is a ground cherry, 2 tubs of marshmallow, ground cherry, Ground cherry. I really like ground cherries. Stinging nettle, which is aptly named. It will bite you. More chamomile that needs to be harvested. 2 tubs of comfrey that I need to harvest and make into salve. My catnip is slowly coming up. And 2 tubs of horseradish that is great on meat, but is also wonderful to use as a natural decongestant. The asparagus is done for the season, but we won't cut it back until it dies back. We love asparagus, and I've ordered more crowns to plant next week. Here's our little blackberry patch. It's not going to give us many blackberries this year, but it gave us so many last year, I still have some in the freezer. So it's just fine. And here are my tomato plants. I have 93 plants this year because I am hoping to can both plain tomatoes and lots of salsa. I did mention how much I love salsa, didn't I? Outside of the garden, we have our fruit trees. We planted this plum last year, so we might start getting some fruit off of it next year, but more likely in 2 more years. This is one of our apple trees that gave us so much fruit last year, and if things go well, it will again this year. It was magnificent with blossoms earlier this spring and is loaded with small fruit today. There is so much fruit that I'm going to have to selectively prune some of the excess apples to protect the branches from breaking. While I may get fewer apples by removing some now, I will get bigger, healthier apples by reducing the stress on the tree. This is another apple tree that doesn't have many apples, but that just means I won't have to prune it as hard. And here are our pear trees. This larger one is the male tree, which pollinates our second tree. While there are some varieties of pear that will self-pollinate, these do not. Last year was the first year we harvested from this pear tree, and I was able to put up 4 pints of pear honey, a type of jam my mother used to make. I love pear honey. This year we have at least twice as many small fruits growing, and I hope to make more pear honey and also can some pears. Thank you for stopping by the old Mayfield place today. Stay healthy. What are you growing in your garden this year? And have a blessed week.